Welcome everybody, this is brothermutant here. Today we're going to do something a little different. We're still in Pathfinder Kingmaker, but what we're going to do is we're going to continue to talk about various characters and how you might improve their abilities. Specifically, we're going to talk about some of the caster classes, and there's a reason for that. So we're going to talk first about Bards. This one's going to be broken down into multiple stages because I want to talk to you about each spell school that they have access to. Some of them are pretty small and brief, which will be short videos. Others are particularly large, like the one we're going to talk about first, which is the Enchantment School. Now I have force leveled up this character here, just to pop him up and show you what I'm talking about. I actually gave him 3.6 million XP off camera, force leveled up to level 20, straight Bard, nothing fancy. And while the stats are to be expected for my typical type of Bard, there are better ways to make them. So for those of you that are like, oh, I would have done this with his charisma, I would have done this with his strength instead of dex or whatever. Yeah, I understand. Everyone's playstyle is different. This is just to get the character up so I can see his spells and get some feats under his belt so that I can actually test certain things. Now you see that we've scattered his points to the far winds. He's done decent numbers, but I could have had better. Got to spread them around a little bit, but he still has respectable scores in many cases. His abilities are a bowman, particularly. He would be a ranged short bow attacker is the ideal. He's got point blank shot, precise shot, got those as a human at level 1 because you get 2 feats instead of 1 at the very beginning. Then from there, things like spell focus and greater spell focus are what we're really going to spend our time talking about, as well as some of the meta magics. So spell focus, for those of you that don't know, is a feat you can take individually picked for each school. So you have to decide which school you want, and you can pick as many spell focuses, spell foci, as there are schools. Now, there's some reasons not to do that, because 1, it's a big waste, and 2, there are some schools where you just don't use spell focus for any real effect. Looking right at you, their divination school. So enchantment, though, is one where you can actually benefit from having a higher DC for your spells. Basically, this is the saving throw that they have to equal or beat for the target. So for a spell focus spell, in this case an enchantment spell, I get a +1 to my DC. I have greater spell focus and enchantment as well. It gives me another +1. So that literally is now, for any enchantment spell I cast, the DC, if there is one, is 2 higher than it should be. That's actually pretty good. We went weapon finesse just to make sure we have some good skills with that dex bonus that we have. But the meta magics is we're really going to start rocking some stuff here. So now we have extend spell, empower, reach, maximize, quicken, and heighten. I mean, you would never take this many. If you did, you'd have to be a straight up caster, like a sorcerer. I did this because I wanted to see which spells work with which meta magics. And while we're not going to go through all of that today, it is important to note that because bards, like sorcerers and like a certain subclass of magus, are capable of being spontaneous casters. What that means is they get a certain spell number per day. And anything that falls within that category of spells, so in this case level 1 spells, I can cast any of them 7 times a day. Only 7 castings of a level 1 spell. I can do 7 of this one, 7 of that, 3 and 4, 3, 3, 1, however I want to mix and match it up. And it's because of the fact that they have this ability, this spontaneous casting, that allows Metamagic Feats to really shine. So you can get multiple uses of the same type of spell at different levels. So if I really need a heal, I can heal it at level 1. The same spell can be used technically at level 2 or 3 or 4, depending on which magic feat I add to it. So I always have a heal. I always have a sleep spell or an enchantment of some kind or a buff or a whatever, attack spell. That's the reason for metamagics being so incredibly powerful for these spontaneous caster types. So let's look at these enchantment spells as we go through them, okay? So we have Hideous Laughter, Haze of Dreams, Hypnotism, Sleep, and Unbreakable Heart. These are all the ones that a bard, a normal, traditional bard, can get at level 1, okay? I can get 6 spells that I can learn at level 20 bard. By the time you reach level 20 bard, you'll have learned 6 level 1 spells. You can't learn more than that. As far as I know, there's no way for you to teach yourself another one. You can't scribe a book, even though it looks like we opened up a book. This is spontaneous casting. This is just a way for you to visualize it. So it's not like a wizard where you can just like read a scroll and boom, suddenly have another spell. So you're limited to what you pick. So it's important what you pick is good, which is what these videos are about. So let's look at some of these spells, okay? First off, there's a buff spell, Unbreakable Heart. This is an enchantment, but you don't get any buff from having spell focus or greater spell focus for enchantment because of this. because those are for DCs, basically saving throws. No one's going to save against this because it's your team. You're buffing somebody. So any kind of buff spell shouldn't have a DC associated with it. So you don't have to worry about whether you're getting the full benefit of your spell focus or your spell focus on this particular spell. It just works. All right? And it's a decent spell. It's not the best spell ever, but I could see it being somewhat useful. But for the spells that are basically quote-unquote attack spells, Hideous Laughter, Hypnotism, Haze of Dreams, and Sleep, there are some things to point out. First off, Hideous Laughter and Haze of Dreams are single target. Therefore, you get to target the enemy. You don't have to worry about hurting your teammates. You just target an enemy. If it works, it does its job. Notice that these spells, in many cases, are save or suck spells. What that means is, if they save, they are successful. It negates the full effect of the spell. It's like nothing ever happened to them. If they suck, they fail their save, then the spell has full effect. Okay, hence the save or suck spell. Some of these spells have, see if I can find you a good one. Probably got to do it in another area. Oh, where is it? Where is it? Give me. What do you got there? No. Boy, I'm having a hard time finding something here. Enchantment really doesn't have a lot of these. Oh, there's a shout. Okay, here's a fine example. It's not an enchantment spell, that doesn't matter. Shout, an evocation spell that bards have access to. They have a lot of sonic attacks, so this kind of fits thematically speaking. Shout is a partial save spell. So if you see a saving throw on the side there, it says Fortitude Partial. This is good news for you. Anytime you see whatever saving throw, Will, Fortitude, Reflex, and you see partial or for something, it's like a specific condition, usually that means the spell's going to have an effect irregardless of whether they save or not. The other effects get downplayed, and in this case, if they can be stunned. If they make the Fortitude save, they're not stunned. So that's one thing. They also reduce damage, but they don't reduce it to 0. They reduce it to half. Notice that it's a Fortitude save. So this does not work for things like evasion and improved evasion, where reflex saves come into play, and they can take half damage and basically take no damage. So this is still a good spell for targeting bad guys. Okay, now that sadly, you can target your teammates, so you have to be careful with placement. But this is what I mean by some spells are save or suck, some spells are just auto hit, some spells are going to be like this where it's a partial save, so to speak. Alright, so let's go back to level 1. And again, we have our single target ones. Haze of Dreams, pretty much not a fan. Hideous Laughter, on the other hand, is pretty much floors a target, which is kind of nice. The will save is still there. The duration is pretty long, assuming they don't make a save, and they get a chance for a save each round. So it could last 0 rounds if they make the first save. It could last 1 round. It could last all the way up to, in this case, 20 rounds, because we're a level 20 caster, where they're just floored, laughing their guts out, and not doing anything as far as attacking us. Pretty good spell. If I were to take a spell from enchantment level 1, this might be it. It's interesting, looks cool, and there's ways to buff it, hence these little circles. This lets you know that there's 4 different metamagics that I've purchased that could impact this spell, raising it to different levels, giving me different uses of it, and increasing the range, the duration, the damage, if their damage is applicable. You get the idea. So, not a bad spell out of these 2. For AoE spells, you have Sleep and you have Hypnotism. Now let's look at both of these and see why both of these are quite horrible. Sleep spell is one that everyone plays D&D is pretty much familiar with. You cast a spell on a group of bad guys, assuming it's not your team. They go to sleep if they fail their will save, and you can come up and coup de grace them. Well, you don't have coup de grace in this game, at least not yet. You get to attack them, and it wakes them up, but at least gives you a free chance to whoop up on them. So I'm pretty cool with that. So it still does pretty much what it's supposed to do. Downside of this spell is this. Not only is there a will save, but it also has a hit dice cap. Okay, so if you read the text on the side there, you see upon 4 hit dice of creatures. Hit dice, for those of you that don't know, is the equivalent of what level is the character. So it could be 4 level 1 characters that you put to sleep, 2 level 2 characters, a level 3 and a level 1 character. They all add up to 4 hit dice. You understand? Now, if you have a level 5 character or greater that you're fighting, this spell will never work. That's the problem. It's a cap to it. 4 hit dice is all you're going to get. It's possible that Empower might push 4 hit dice up to 6. I've never tested it. Empower gives you 50% better effects. So it's entirely possible that Empower would work on this spell. Matter of fact, we didn't even test to see if Empower works on it. Reach. Nope, here's Empower right here. Can't use it. So the only thing you can do is that you can extend the duration. You could increase the range of the spell. I could make it a quicken spell so it casts faster, but that takes 4 spell slots higher, so a level 1 spell now becomes technically a level 5 spell, kind of a waste. And then of course Metamagic Heightened. This one here is a little tricky in that it did not work for me, and I'm wondering if the reason for this is because I already have spell focus and greater spell focus, and that might be why Metamagic Heightened did not work for me. I can make the spell a heightened spell. It doesn't affect the level at all, so that's why you see the 0. So it's a level 1 spell, it stays a level 1 spell. If I want to extend the duration, it adds this 1 to the spell level. So a 1 and a 1 make a 2, it would be now a level 2 spell. And that's where you would find it. You would literally find it here. And it would be highlighted almost like you see here in some way. That's how you literally make metamagic spells. Let's get back to our spell book though. So this spell can be useful-ish at the lower levels, but it doesn't take long to get past level 4. And sadly, unlike Neverwinter Nights 2, I've yet to figure out how to swap out spells. What that means is, for those that are spontaneous casters, like Sorcerers and again in Bards, as they level up, they out-level some of these earlier spells. In Neverwinter Nights 2, they allow you to unlearn the spell and pick a different one from the same level. That's extremely useful. They so far do not have that in this game, at least I haven't found it. Anyone that has, by all means, post down below, tell me how you do it. Because that would make this spell something that I would pick again, if not to have it for its utilitarian uses and then ditch it later on. Hypnotism, on the other hand, much like Sleep, is also an AoE spell. It is enemies, but therefore it appears to be teammate friendly. I haven't tested that yet, but it'd be interesting to test. Will save will protect them completely. It lasts for 2 to 8 rounds, and it basically dazes the target. Now, here's the problem with this also. It also has an HD cap, 2 to 8 as well, to see how many HD of creatures you affect. So again, 8 being the maximum, 2 being the minimum, and you fall somewhere in there just depending on a random roll. You can, of course, maybe maximize that to make sure that it's always 8 HD. But then again, we're still talking the same thing. Only one target of 8th level can be affected by this then. And anything past 8th level is completely immune. It has a lot more utility than Sleep because of that. It doesn't last as long, but then again, most fights don't last minutes on end either, so this is kind of overkill. Hypnotism would probably be more to my liking. If I were forced to pick between 2 spells of the enchantment pool for level 1, it'd be Hideous Laughter and Hypnotism. Going on to level 2, we have Cacophonous Call, Heroism, Hold Person, Rage. These are the 4 that you can get at level 2 as a bard. And let's look at each of those. First, let's look at the buffs. We have Rage. I ignore straight out of the bat. There's nothing wrong with it horribly. I don't like any spell that buffs my team in a way that also penalizes my armor class. No one, early level anyway, can afford a -2 penalty to AC, especially on a difficult, challenging rating. So I'd rather use something else to buff my team than this. But I can see the use of it, especially on a party of 6 people. 6 people that have +2 to strength, 6 people that have +2 to con, 6 people that have increased to will saves. That's all good gravy. It's that -2 penalty to AC for all 6 people that kinda sucks. But they don't get a rage crash like our other rager does, because she's a true barbarian and uses true rage. But I can still see some people saying, oh, I like it. I'm not going to say don't get it. But again, there's no real reason to. There's other stuff here. Heroism, single target now, lasts for a decent amount of time, 10 minutes per level. You can cast it multiple times. Hell, you have 6 castings per day. You could buff a whole team of 6 with just Heroism and be happy. There's nothing wrong with using that as far as I'm concerned. Especially at level 20, I'm casting it for 200 minutes per person. That's a long, long buff. It gives them a +2 to their attack rolls, +2 to saves, and +2 to their skill checks. Totally worth having, in my opinion. Now, there is greater Heroism. We'll get to that because it's a spell that bards can get too. And again, I could see Heroism falling along the way. Again, if I could spec out of it, unlearn it and learn a better spell later on once greater Heroism opens up, I would totally do so. But barring that, you have to make the decision. Do you want this now and then kind of stuck with it later? Or do you want to wait until you're like level 3 or 4 or 5, whenever Greater Heroism shows up, and then take Greater Heroism, which, by the way, doesn't last as long. It's 1 minute per level. The buff is twice as good, though. +4 immunity to fear, +4 saves and attack rolls, and a bunch of other cool stuff. So again, Greater Heroism, I think, even gives you hit points. So, you know, everyone's playstyle is a little different. There's no reason not to take both of them. But if you're limited to how many spells you can have total, I could see passing on Heroism. But I wouldn't. Just out of hand, I would think about it. Now for your attacks, we have Hold Person, single target enemy. We have Cacophonous Call, single target, close range, and it's a save or suck spell. Downside of this one is and I freely admit I don't know what nauseated condition actually does for you. It clearly doesn't stop them from attacking you, because I got my butt handed to me by Cacophonous calling somebody, and they still came right at me. They failed their save. It was working, but it didn't seem to stop them from attacking. It's not like Hold Person, which paralyzes somebody. So again, save or suck as well, but at the very least, when they suck big time. Hold Person is a great spell. Now, downside of Hold Person, and I will say this, Hold Person has a nice medium range to it. This one has a short range, close range, excuse me. We can buff both of those things with a Metamagic Feat, making this Hold Person even better, which is really nice. The downside of this spell is, notice how it says Hold Person. Okay, that's kind of a key point, because I think there's a Hold Person, there is definitely a Hold Monster, and if I'm not mistaken, Druids even get a Hold Animal spell. That literally is spells for different groups of people, or different groups of targets, excuse me. Hold Person obviously works for humanoids. If you want to hold something like a troll, I don't think Hold Person works. I think Hold Monster would work on just about anything living. So that's another key point. But Hold Person is very limited. Don't cast it on a wolf, it's not a person. Don't cast it on, some slime or bugs or any other critter out there, because Hold Person will not work on them, from what I understand. Haven't tested it, but I pretty much know that it's not going to do what I think it's going to. So those are your 4 level 2 spells. Level 3, we have Confusion, Crushing Despair, Deep Slumber, this is Sleep's big brother, Good Hope, and Overwhelming Grief. 5 spells, and we can still fit those within our Bard build and get every enchantment as a result. Let's look at Good Hope first. Good Hope is kind of a nice buff team-wise. 30-foot burst centered on a specific target at range, so I can cast it at distance and get those frontliners if I want. Lasts for a good amount of time, a minute per level. They get +2 to saving throws, attack rolls, ability checks, skill checks, and weapon damage rolls. That's a pretty damn good buff. Seems to be the exact opposite of Crushing Despair. While this one's AoE, this one's a cone. This is enemies, obviously this is for teammates. But this cone does basically the same thing in reverse. Penalty to attack rolls, saving throws, ability checks, skill checks, and weapon damage rolls in a cone effect. And it says all creatures within a 30-foot cone. I haven't tested to make sure this is teammate friendly. The icon shows red dots and no blue dots. That usually means enemies only, but I would test it first. Otherwise, placement's going to be kind of iffy. But if it is teammate friendly, this would be an okay spell for me to pick. And it's a save or suck spell. So if they make the save, you're wasting your time. However, it's a cone, or AoE, another way of looking at it. You can hit more than one person with this, one more target, with this. Will I affect all of them? Probably not. Will I affect at least one? Probably. It's a pretty good chance that I will. And at the very least, I'd rather have one guy screwed than having all of them coming at me. So again, I could see the use of spells like this now. And again, there's no HD cap, so it doesn't matter what level they are. It matters in the fact that their will save's probably going to be better. But other than that, there's ways around it. Now let's look at Deep Slumber, Sleep's big brother. Same basic principle as Sleep. Maybe a different AoE effect. Still can affect people on your team, so be careful. But the HD cap goes up. Instead of 4, it goes up to now 10. Still, that's a cap. That's still the same problem. Other than that, it behaves in the same exact manner as Sleep. If Sleep wasn't any good, this was slightly more utility to it. And again, it takes a while to get to level 10, so at least you can count on one guy probably sleeping in the party that you hit us on. So yeah, for a little crowd control, I could see the use of it. But I would rather use it for something that I know is going to affect everybody later in the game. Confusion, on the other hand, This one is the definition of horrible, in my opinion. Again, this is just my opinion. This is not only a save or suck spell, but this is a spell that even if they suck, there is a condition where it has no effect. See the D100 roll that they have to make after they fail their save? If it's 0, if they roll a 1 to 25, it has still no effect on them. It's only after that that something happens, and not necessarily a horrible thing. The attack nearest creature, you could be the nearest creature, so it really didn't do you a whole lot of good to confuse that guy, did it? You get the idea. So this is the problem, for spells like this. I would much rather take something like Crushing Despair. Certainly Good Hope, team buffs are great, but again, as a enchanter, if that's what I'm naming my bard, I'm not dialed into having this spell, but it still seems like a pretty damn good one. Deep Slumber still has its place, but again, without being able to swap it out later, I probably wouldn't pick it up front. But again, your mileage may vary. Overwhelming Grief, the last one. One enemy creature within close range. The range is concerning. Close is pretty damn close, and you're a squishy little bard person. You get some armor, you get some spells and some better armor, and you could not tank, but you could hold your own. But I would not expect to be in the front lines as this kind of a character if I didn't have to be. You typically stand behind the front lines, if at all, to cast your spells, to shoot your bow or your crossbow and your spells. And that's pretty much what you're going to do. This is a save or suck spell. Again, will negates it. They get a save each round. It does penalize them pretty badly if it works. It's a penalty to armor class, and they lose their dex bonus. And while that doesn't seem like that big of a deal, think about this. Will negates it. There are several classes that will is important. They get a lot of will saves. Think of your clerics and your druids. So people with high wisdom have high will saves, right? So that's going to be an issue. But the classes that don't, fighters, rogues, and just those classes alone, penalizing their armor class and penalizing their dex is a pretty big thing for you. Decreases their ranged attacks, decreases any weapon finesse attacks that they may have on you, and increases your chance of hitting them because of their armor class penalty and possibly their dex penalty as well. That's pretty good. That's a nice reason for picking this spell. I still probably wouldn't do it. It has its utility. I can find something better, I probably would. But in a pinch, yeah, I could see getting an enchantment and saying, well, I need something single target. It's just that close range really worries me. We can buff that, though. There are ways to buff that with Metamagic Feats. You can get the reach Metamagic on this one, and close range now becomes medium range. That's pretty good. Going to level 4, we got Dominate Person, Hold Monster now, and Serenity. Just 3. Let's look at the Dominate Person. This one basically, at close range, turns an enemy into your best friend, and he starts wailing on his friends for you. You can still attack him. You can still kill him off because he's going to be a target when this wears off. But let him do his thing. Work on his friends first, unless he's the last one standing, and then just turn your attention to him. I got no problem with that. But again, Dominate Person, not Dominate Monster. So there is a difference here. Humanoid creatures are what we're talking about here. Don't try to cast this on your little spiders. It shouldn't have any effect. Decent spell. Close range kind of worries me. It's a save or suck spell. But again, with your spell focus and your greater spell focus and enchantment, he has a +2 added to his DC check, which makes it very difficult for these guys to overcome spells like this. I could see picking it. I'd probably pick Hold Monster first, for obvious reasons. Paralyzes any monster. Has to be a living creature. That has to be restated here because you're not going to work this on the undead. You're not going to work this on constructs. So don't waste your time. If a golem's coming for you, you're not going to get it. But if it's a living critter of some kind, this one has the potential to work. Again, it's a save or suck spell. If their will passes it, or if they have, God forbid, in any of these cases, spell resistance that you can't penetrate, you're not doing anything with this. We come to that in a bit, though. Serenity. This one here is interesting. I haven't really looked at this one before today, but it's an AoE effect. Seems to be enemies only. Notice the red dots instead of the blue and red mixed. So it's only enemies, apparently. And basically what this does is if they fail their save, anytime that they make an attack, they take 3d6 points of damage each round when they try to harm someone else because they're so overracked with guilt. And they just take damage. Well, how many people did you hit with that 30-foot burst? It's an AoE effect. Could you hit one guy, 2, 5? If they're all swinging at you, they are enemies for a reason, right? They're going to not stop attacking, so they're going to injure themselves just because you hit them with this spell. And it'll be continuous, 1 round per level for a long, long time. Now, they can make a will save. Now, it doesn't say they can make a will save every round. So if they fail their will save, the question would be, will they just continue to take damage? That would be huge. And I could see this one then being one of my favorites at level 4. Going on from there, level 5. Cacophonous Call, Mass, so AoE effect. Cloak of Dreams, very interesting. Greater Heroism, nice buff. Mind Fog, now we're talking. And Song of Discord. We'll get into it in a minute. So let's look at buff first. Greater Heroism. Remember, we had Heroism already at level 2. Now we had to go all the way to level 5, which takes a long road to hoe. But look what you get for it. The duration's not as long. 1 minute per level. Not as good as the other one, but by this time you're really pumping out 15, 16 minutes worth of stuff anyway. So it's not horrible. And there's ways to extend it to doubling the duration. It's cool. You get +4 bonus, morale bonus, which is important. We won't really get into that in this video, but it is important. On attack rolls, saves, skill checks, immunity to fear, temporary hit points equal to your caster level, in this case 20, because I am a level 20 caster. So all kinds of good stuff slapped your way for Greater Heroism. I could see this being extremely useful on any party. Put it on your heavy hitter that's just having difficulty smacking down the target, or your Arcane Trickster that you really know is going to sneak attack damage the hell out of those guys with spells. Buff them up with some Greater Heroism, then go to town. You'll love it all day long. Now let's look at Mass Cacophonous Call. Now remember, we didn't like Cacophonous Call really to begin with. Don't know what the nausea really does, and again, it didn't seem to stop him from attacking me. It's not teammate friendly, it's a burst spell, but it appears to target people on your team, hence the little blue dots intermixed with the red dots. And that's not cool. It's centered on the caster, so if you're running solo, or you're trapped in a corner somewhere, maybe you fire it off, maybe you get lucky. But I don't know what that condition, the nausea condition, really will do for you. If you're running solo, you're probably better off just hitting him with a high-hitting, damaging spell like Shout, Greater Shout, something of that nature. Cloak of Dreams. This one's actually kind of interesting. If sleep kind of was like hit or miss, if deep slumber was kind of not your thing, this is your baby. Cloak of Dreams is a personal barrier AoE is what I think of them as. They're centered on the caster, hence personal. Puts a little aura on you that within 5 feet, anyone, and I mean anyone, so get away from your team, anyone that fails that will save falls asleep for a minute. And I have tested this. It does work on your team. Do not let them get near you. You have to be positioned just the right place. But oh boy, can you have some fun with this one. And it does not have an HD cap. And it keeps firing off every round. They have to make a will save, a will save, a will save. And even if they're good at will saving, I guarantee you, unless they're like so far above you or have so much spell resistance that they're immune, they're going to miss it eventually. And eventually they're going to fall asleep and you take them to town. So this is a good spell. Now again, maybe it doesn't work so well on undead or things that might be immune to sleep, but that's why you have other spells, right? Now, Mind Fog. Mind Fog is weird. Mind Fog by itself doesn't really do anything. Doesn't attack them in a way that basically cripples them forever. It doesn't do damage. It doesn't stun them. What it does do is it lowers their wisdom checks and their will saves. And that's huge. Now notice it's a will save to prevent it. But that's while they're in the fog. As long as they're in that fog, every round they're going to make another will save. Eventually they will fail. And it seems, based on the description in the target, all enemies, and it's all red dots, that it would be teammate friendly. If that's the case, you can stand in that cloud, and now you have debuffed bad guys with will, even wizards that have a low will now, that you can possibly hit with some of your other will-based save spells. That's very useful, and I could see that synergizing well, not just with your spells, but with other teammate spells. So that's a really good one. That gives my thumb of approval. Right up there, baby. Song of Discord. Now, this one's a little weird. This one's more than weird. It's enemy only, appears to be. Seems to be a burst centered on a specific target at range, decent range. It's a save or suck spell. They basically turn on each other rather than attack their foes. So basically they start attacking themselves. Each affected creature has a 50% chance to attack the nearest target each round. That nearest target can be you, though. And again, a creature that does not attack its nearest neighbor is free to act normally for that round. So this is 50-50 chance that it'll even work even after they fail. I wouldn't pick it. It's Song of Discord sounds cool because you're a bard and you sing and it's synergy, right? I don't particularly care about that. Mind Fog, though, yeah, baby. Slap that down in some Cloak of Dreams and you're standing in a cloud of basically sleepy bad guys. Watch your team just go to town whooping their ass. Super fun. And they stay asleep for a good long while under that Cloak of Dreams. That's a minute per. But wake up after being wounded. So they can still wake up, but you still have free chances to whack on and you could single target one guy down and then get to the next guy and then to the next guy, and you got a minute to do it. So good stuff there. The last level 6. This one we're going to go in reverse order. So we have Euphoric Tranquility, Overwhelming Presence, and Wave of Ecstasy. Only 3. Let's do Wave of Ecstasy first. This one here is a little weird. It's a cone. Can affect your own teammates, so that's scary. You know, the will save or suck spell, but it's a will partial save. So let's read this, right? You emanate waves of intense pleasure that cause all targets within range to falter. Affected creatures are stunned for 1 round and are staggered for the remainder of the spell, so 1 round per level. A creature that makes its will save is staggered for the first round and then can act normally thereafter. So at the very least, they're staggered bare minimum for 1 round, assuming they're not somehow immune to the effect. That's pretty good. And I'd almost rather say I'd pick something like that over some of these other save or suck spells. Overwhelming Presence. All enemies within 30-foot burst. Again, a real nice range, medium range, nice AoE effect. Save or suck, will negates it, lasts for an okay amount of time. This one I have tested, and it does seem to work. However, it's a little weird. They basically follow you around being all like creepy and stuff, like they bow their heads and kind of like follow you around. I think they can still attack you even. After I killed my guy, I did this with one of the guys in the tutorial. As soon as I killed him, the 1d6 points of wisdom drain kicked in, so it's kind of a waste, but I didn't really let it last very long either. Like 1 shot and he was dead. And I didn't see the staggered from 1 to 4 rounds because again he was already dead. But notice how a creature that succeeds at an initial save to resist this spell is merely staggered for 1 round. So again, this one should not say will negate, it should say will partial again, just like we saw with Waves of Ecstasy. That's pretty useful. Last one, Euphoric Tranquility. I couldn't get the one to do a damn thing. Now maybe I just did it wrong, but I did it again in the tutorial against 1 target, single target use. It hit. He did fail his save, but basically, see, until the end of the spell's duration, the creature's speed is halved. Who cares? And it must succeed at will saving throw each next round to avoid being nauseated. Again, I don't know what the nausea effect did. Didn't seem to do anything to stop him from attacking me because the little bastard kept trying to stab me in the face. So I'd probably pass on it. And it's a single target. At level 6, you got much better stuff that you could be using. Some that are teammate friendly, some that aren't, but with good positioning, either of these would be good choices. I would not balk at either of those as a good enchantment spell for a bard. Now, before we finish this video, and again, we're specifically talking about the enchantress version of a bard, notice how we have other spells. And again, if I lose this one, I would be able to get another level 6 spell, something more of use. Notice how though I've picked Summon Monster and Greater Shout. A couple good reasons. One, it's always nice to be able to do damage. And the fact that I can stun people en masse could be some good crowd control as well. But notice how when people are immune because of, say, high spell resistances or immune to sonic damage, I don't even know that that's a thing, but it's possible, then why not just summon a big hogging monster for them to mess with, or like 3 of them or 5 of them? You get the idea. So summoning spells do have their place, and bards still have access to them. So I would not discount the summoning spells. Summon monster, especially if you're going to go as a conjurer, which we'll talk about in another video. You can get some augment summoning as well as some superior conjuring spells where you basically increase the number that you summon or increase the stats of the ones you summon. All good gravy, but not ones that we're focusing on with this particular build. From there, I'll see if I can find one other. Shout, Cure Critical. You have access to a lot of the cure spells, and that's particularly useful because you're a secondary healer. You can also do damage to undead. We can buff these with Metamagic, so we can do them at range instead of touch attack. We can blast them at that short range, at least close range. I think it's like 30 feet or 20 feet or something. So you can still stay behind the tank a little bit and blast the undead with a spell or two. That's a possibility, and they have access to them. Greater invisibility, you don't have to cast it on yourself, but you can. Good positioning, keeps you protected. I'd cast it on those that have sneak attack. But oh wait, Brother Mutant, we have sneak attack in this spell here called Sense Vitals, and you betcha. I'd become invisible, can't sense vitals on myself, make sure that it's not enchanted, what's the word? Enhanced or duration for Metamagic, extended, there we go. And make sure that I have greater invisibility on me. Go around and start plinking guys with my bow. That's going to be a good bow with good spell, not spells, what do I want to say? Good enhancements on it, so it'll be an enchanted bow that does extra damage and blah blah blah. I have extra feats built into my character so I can shoot faster, shoot more, and just start plinking away with that decent dexterity that I have and increase the damage with that sneak attack spell that I just showed you. So I can pretend to be a thief even though I'm not really a rogue, and that's kind of cool. And again, Shout, much like Greater Shout, has that stunning ability, the cone effect, and some decent sonic damage. It may not be as good as Greater Shout, but in a pinch, in a level 4 spell, it's much needed damage, spell-wise. Other than that, the last thing to point out is, again, the fact that you can Metamagic these spells. Any of these dots refer to how many different Metamagics that I've purchased that I can slot in them. So there's 4 different Metamagics that can go in this one, up to 4. I can be any one of those 4 and any combo thereof. The trick is always the same. You can't go higher than level 6 spell. Because I'm a spontaneous caster, I have that ability to diversify my spellbook. Like you see here, these ones that are lower level spells, they've been enhanced to level 3 from being extended or being, what's this one? Extended and reach, so it goes farther and it lasts longer. Nothing wrong with any of those things. And because I can cast any level 3 spell 6 times a day, if I need Hideous Laughter and I've already used my low level ones, bam, here we go. I still have another use of it. Or if I really need to hit a whole person, well, I have this one now. And it's even better because it's extended so the duration lasts longer. You get the idea. So this is why Metamagics are really potent, specifically for those spontaneous caster types. And again, just to re-emphasize, those are Bards, Sorcerers, one level or one subclass of the Magus that they don't have a spell book. They use their charisma. It'll be pretty obvious. They even talked about them being like sorcerers, and they have a bloodline, just like your, what's that guy that joins you, Ragnarok or whatever the hell his name is, the half-orc. He's a Magus that is like a sorcerer type. He can cast spontaneously X number of spells per day from level 1 or 2 or 3. So he would be one that would really benefit from some Metamagics. Also, I feel like I'm forgetting something. Oh yeah, the Inquisitor, right, the Divine set. There's only one that I know of that's a spontaneous caster on the Divine set, and that's the Inquisitor. They have, much like us, limited spell pool, certain number of spells per day, per level, and if you give them some Metamagic Feats, they can extend those. Now, having said that, if you want to have some super duper fun, go Sorcerer, Inquisitor, split them up. I'm going to say you got to go like 6 for one and 4 the other, or some such, 5 and 5, and then go 10 into Mystic Theurge. Level 10 Mystic Theurge allows you to swap spells interchangeably between them and watch your spellbook get huge with some Metamagics as well. But we'll do that on a separate video. With that, though, I think this video's gone on long enough. My name is Brother Mutant. Please like, subscribe, comment down below. Tell me what you guys think, how you guys work your Metamagics. And certainly, I would not suggest everyone get all these. The ones that I would probably focus on would be Extend, maybe Reach. I could see Empower or Maximize, but they're so high cost that you're really not getting your bang for your buck. Same with Quicken. Possibly Heightened, but I have yet to see what Heightened officially does. Doesn't seem to work for me. Maybe it's a glitch. Maybe I'm just doing it wrong. But everybody has their own special way of doing things. So if you guys have a different way of setting up your Bard, let me know. Certainly there's ways to go Strength and ignore Dex. But I like being able to stay at distance with weaker characters like this. With that, though, I'll see you guys soon. Bye now.